The first time my driveway was blocked, I told myself it was a mistake. That was the lie I needed to believe to keep the peace. I had lived in that suburban neighborhood for years, long enough to understand that peace was never guaranteed when an HOA board member decided you were a problem. My driveway was narrow but clearly marked, leading straight to my garage. It wasn't shared. It wasn't ambiguous. And yet on that morning, a large SUV sat perfectly sideways across the entrance, sealing me in like a gate slammed shut on purpose. I stood there longer than I should have, coffee cooling in my hand, staring at the vehicle as if it might suddenly apologize and roll away. The HOA board member who owned it lived 2 houses down. She was known for enforcing rules with enthusiasm and mercy with none. Flags an inch too low. Trash bins left out 10 minutes late. Grass cut in the wrong direction. She wore authority, like armor, and once she decided you were beneath correction, she escalated. At the time, I had recently submitted a formal complaint questioning an HOA fine that made no sense. It was small, almost insignificant, but it challenged her authority. That was the moment everything shifted. The driveway incident wasn't random. It was retaliation, subtle enough to deny, but deliberate enough to disrupt my life, I reported. It threw the HOA portal, attaching a polite explanation and a photo. Hours later, the SUV was gone. No apology, no acknowledgement, just silence, as that silence was the warning. The next time it happened, it was intentional enough to hurt. I had an early appointment. The SUV returned, positioned more aggressively, closer this time, leaving no space to maneuver. I contacted the HOA again. No response. I knocked on her door. No answer. I had to call for a ride and leave my car trapped like evidence in an open crime scene. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about parking. It was about power. Over the next 2 weeks, it happened 4 more times. Always early, always when I had somewhere important to be. The pattern was unmistakable. Each report I filed vanished into administrative nothingness. Each time, the vehicle moved hours later, as if to say the inconvenience was the point, not the outcome. Neighbors began to notice. Some whispered sympathy. Others avoided eye contact, afraid of becoming targets themselves. In HOA communities, fear spreads quietly. Everyone knows what happens when you're labeled difficult. I documented what I could with my phone, snapping quick photos before rushing off. Something about the situation felt slippery, temporary, easy to deny. Photos showed a car blocking a driveway, but not intent, not repetition, not the subtle cruelty of doing it again and again. Then came the morning that changed everything. I stood on my porch watching the SUV settle into place, the engine idling for a moment before shutting off. I didn't need to see the driver. Already knew. She sat there long enough to make sure the block was complete, long enough to let me see it. Then she walked away, not even glancing back. That was the moment frustration hardened into resolve. I stopped reporting. I stopped complaining. I stopped reacting. Instead, I started planning. I installed a small weatherproof camera angled directly at the driveway, and another, covering the street. A third captured the sidewalk and her approach. Everything was legal. Everything was discreet. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't threaten action. I just waited. The first recording felt surreal. Clear footage of her vehicle pulling up, adjusting, reversing slightly to ensure full blockage, pausing, then her walking away. Confident and unbothered. No confusion, no emergency. It's just deliberate obstruction. I let it happen again. And again. Each time, the recordings grew more damning. Timestamps, angles, patterns. The consistency turned coincidence into certainty. She wasn't just blocking a driveway. She was using her HOA position to harass a homeowner she disliked, counting on fear and bureaucracy to shield her. The worst incident came on a Friday. I had a family commitment that couldn't be delayed. The SUV arrived earlier than usual, blocking me before sunrise. I documented everything, calmly calling for alternative transport, knowing exactly how it would look on video. Hours later, the car remained, When it finally moved, the damage had already been done by then. I had weeks of footage. I compiled it carefully. Dates, times, still images, short clips showing repetition. A narrative built not on emotion, but on facts. I included copies of my ignored HOA complaints and a timeline showing escalation after I questioned a fine. Still, I didn't act. I waited for her next move. That move came when I received a formal HOA violation notice in my mailbox. The accusation was vague but serious enough to threaten fines. It referenced ongoing noncompliance without details. It was a reminder that she believed she still controlled the board, the rules, and me. That notice was the push she didn't realize she was giving. I made one final recording. Clear, undeniable, the SUV blocking my driveway for over 5 hours straight. No emergency, no explanation. It's just dominance on display. That night, I organized everything into a single digital folder. The footage spoke louder than any complaint ever could. I wasn't angry anymore. I was precise. The story was no longer about a driveway, it was about exposure. And I was ready to let the truth drive itself straight. Through the system she thought she controlled, the next chapter would not involve quiet patience or ignored reports. It would involve witnesses, records, and consequences that could not be parked away. Once the evidence was complete, everything slowed down. That calm before action felt strange, like standing at the edge of a storm you already knew would hit. I didn't rush. I didn't vent. I didn't warn her. I understood something she didn't. Power weakens the moment it's documented. The first step wasn't public. It was procedural. I submitted a formal complaint to the HOA management company, not the board. Attached was a single video clip carefully chosen, along with a written summary that avoided emotion entirely. Dates, times, duration, a pattern. I requested acknowledgement and escalation, nothing more. The response came faster than ever before, within 48 hours. I received confirmation that the complaint had been forwarded for review. That alone told me something had shifted. For the first time, the issue couldn't be quietly buried. It existed in a system outside her direct control. Then the blocking stopped. For a full week, my driveway remained clear. No SUV, no retaliation. No notes, no fines. It was almost peaceful, almost. But peace built on fear never lasts. The next move came in the form of an emergency. HOA, meeting notice sent to all residents. The agenda was vague, referencing community conduct concerns. In recent allegations, her name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. In neighborhoods like this, news travels faster than official emails. I attended quietly, sitting near the back, saying nothing. The presentation was short and carefully worded. The management company outlined complaints regarding misuse of authority and harassment without naming individuals. Then came the footage. Edited, neutral, unavoidable. The room shifted. It wasn't outrage at first. It was discomfort. People seeing something they had suspected but never confirmed. A pattern of behavior now undeniable. The repeated obstruction. The intent. The authority abuse. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The footage spoke for her. The meeting ended without resolution, but the damage was done. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal easily. Over the next few days, neighbors approached me quietly. Some apologized for not speaking up sooner. Others admitted they had similar experiences but lacked proof. The fear that had kept them silent began to crack. That's when the second phase. BEGANI submitted the full evidence package to the city's non-emergency enforcement office. Blocking a private driveway repeatedly wasn't an HOA issue. It was a municipal violation. The documentation was thorough, time-stamped, unarguable. The response was swift. An official notice was issued, then a citation, then another. Each one referenced documented evidence. Each one stripped away another layer of protection, she thought. Her position provided the HOA board scrambled. A special session was announced to review board conduct. This time, the agenda was specific. Ethics, authority abuse, conflict of interest. Terms that carry weight when spoken aloud. She resigned before the vote. The announcement was brief and framed as a personal decision. No admission, no apology. But it didn't matter. The community knew the truth. The power she wielded evaporated. The moment she lost her title, the consequences didn't stop there. The management company initiated a review of past fines issued under her oversight. Several were overturned. Refunds were issued. Policies were revised. Clearer oversight mechanisms were introduced. Transparency replaced intimidation, at least for now. As for the driveway, it was never blocked again. Months later, life settled. Back into something resembling normal? The cameras remained silent but watchful, not out of fear anymore, but out of principle. I had learned that documentation wasn't paranoia, it was protection. The experience changed how the neighborhood functioned. People spoke up sooner, questioned decisions, asked for clarity. The culture of quiet compliance faded, replaced by cautious accountability, and her SUV, it was gone. Sometimes I see her drive past the neighborhood entrance, slower than before, as if unsure whether she still belonged there. Authority, once lost, doesn't linger. It dissolves. I never celebrated. There was no victory speech, no dramatic confrontation. It's just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the system only works when someone is willing to record what others hope. Stays unseen, the driveway was always just concrete. What she tried to block was my autonomy in the end. All I did was let the truth park itself exactly where it belonged,